back to Watches Live. This is Watches Live 29 coming to you from Watchbox Reviews. It's the only show we have on this channel, so you can't miss it. You know what else you can't miss? TheWatchbox.com. With over 1,600 pre-owned watches live, it is the largest repository of pre-owned watches on the internet, bar none. Check it out. It's where I go to buy, trade, and sell watches. Well, we may as well open with instant gratification, yes? I showed you a monster on the thumbnail, a monster of the deep indeed. It's the Blancpain X Fathoms. Technically, the 50 Fathoms X Fathoms, a concept watch come to life. This is from 2011. What is it? Well, it's a 55.5 millimeter, 24 millimeter thick, titanium Blancpain 50 Fathoms on dinosaur steroids. The watch has it all. First, the sapphire capped bezel that we all know and love, it's back in nightmare scale. The watch features a strap composed of no fewer than 14 individual parts with a downright gothic looking double ardillon pin buckle. This thing looks like it was made for beheading a Viking in combat back in the year 1100. The watch right here features two depth gauge scales, not one. The orange is for 0 to 90 meters. Let me get a little bit closer so you can see it big. The orange is for 0 to 90 meters. The blue is for 0 to 15 meters. It has 30 centimeter sensitivity. This thing is calibrated before it leaves Blancpain to the level of a scientific instrument. It features an extraordinary flyback style retrograding 5-minute decompression stop countdown timer, and it features a memory system for the depth gauges that will tell you the deepest part of your dive, and it will retain that information until you press the reset trigger. Now, is there more? You better believe there's more. If you look on the crown side, you'll see through the mesh, the Lamborghini grill style mesh, there is a helium escape valve for this watch, 300 meters water resistant. This is a true hardcore diver. Though the depth gauge only measures to 90, the watch, unlike many mechanical depth gauges, is actually certified to use down to 300. Now what you'll also see, nope, it's not a fallout shelter, but it's big enough. This is the membrane that operates the mechanical depth gauge. Through the tri-grid, there's actually a system that allows the watch to operate without a battery mechanically repeatedly. When this watch goes in for service at Blancpain, you have to have the depth gauge recalibrated along with the service. What kind of movement is in this watch? Well, it's called the 9918B. Automatic winding, it has a 5-day power reserve, a tough free-sprung balance, and an anti-magnetic silicone hairspring. And now I must show you what it looks like on a 16-centimeter wrist. Okay, crazy stuff happening, guys. I'm going to put the 55.5 millimeter wide Blancpain X Fathoms on my wrist. This is a watch that is not appreciably smaller than my face. It features a double ardillon pin buckle and an injection molded strap constructed of 14 separate parts. The shock? You can actually wear it. Does it look normal? No, not even close. Not remotely. 24 millimeters thick. It's a monster. But I will say, this remarkable rubber manacle style strap really does hold the damn thing steady. This is on a tiny wrist. If you've got an 18 centimeter to 20 centimeter circumference wrist, I'm not going to say it would look natural, but it might not look completely and utterly bonkers. This is a masterpiece, a monstrous, mighty, mechanical masterpiece that is just too much. This thing makes a JLC Extreme Lab 2 look like a Datejust, and not a Datejust 2 either. Wow, that's crazy. You know what? We have a comment from Heuer Skipper. It probably runs on its own little nuclear reactor. This thing would need cold fusion. Absolutely monstrous, but wonderful in its way. That's one of those watches that you love. You realize you can never wear it, but you love it. It's like a Lamborghini Aventador. Would you drive such a thing daily? I couldn't, not in good conscience, but it's cool to know such things exist. All right, jumping in, I can see we've got a lot of friends joining us from around the world. Eddie Landsberg first. Heuer Skipper, second, Tom P. third, Russell 996, Edward Ledden from Sweden, Hale Bopp, Don Gizzle 615 from Germany, and Alexi Simola from Finland. Welcome, guys. Sebastian, Matt, welcome, Watch Yoda. Guys, thank you for joining me tonight. All right, we're going to put that one back on the wrist later. For those of you who might have missed it, we're going to come back to the X Fathoms. Let's go classical for a moment. We need some detox. This is the watch I'm wearing tonight. Some folks had asked about my Seamaster, my Bond, and they said it was a waste because I never wore it. Well, I'm wearing it today because, frankly, it's always good to go back to where you came from. This was my graduation watch when I got into college. I wore it through some of the most trying times of my life. Tough times in school, tough times in the military, my early days here at Watch You Want. This is a watch that means a lot to me. It's the one I would never sell, even at the cost of a redundant organ. This is forever. My old Bond is the 253180, an old-timer, and easily my favorite Omega, my only Omega. Gorgeous little piece from back in the day. And that design, 25 years young this year. Okay, let's jump into something absolutely crazy, but wearable. The beast from the east, it's the Seiko Sportura Kinetic Chronograph. This is the SLQ019. What are we looking at? Well, for those of you who might be familiar with spring drive, this is a different take on a exotic quartz solution. So it's a quartz caliber with a battery and an automatic winding system like a conventional mechanical watch would have. So you actually have a rotor on the caseback, and you can see the caseback is a display and a commemorative, 2,000 pieces in this year, 2005. 2005 pieces, I should say, in this year 2005 limited edition. 100 meters water resistant. This might be the ultimate Halloween party watch. The great pumpkin on your wrist, 42 millimeters wide, blackened steel. It separates the chronograph displays entirely from the time of day. Now the watch features a Foudroyant seconds hand. It features a remarkable 1-minute scale, and then you've got a mono counter here with superimposed hour and minute hands. It is an absolute sensation. If you like the look of the crazy flying seconds hand of the JLC Duomet chronograph, but you want to wear an HR Giger Alien on your wrist and you're on a budget, this is the perfect solution. This is a watch that offers you an awful lot of action. Kinetic in more ways than one. This is also a great watch for rotating. If you have a collection and you like to rotate through your watches, it's nice to have a watch with a power reserve of 1 month. This system debuted, I want to say, in 1986 at Basel World as AGS, the automatic generator system. It remains effectively that, now marketed as kinetic. The design of the Sportura chronograph dates back to the late 90s when the first variants were released. Still a classic and absolutely distinctive of Seiko. That's a watch you can buy with a lot of style and a lot of, per the name, kinetic action for not a lot of money. I adore that watch. And Jay Leno has one, caliber 1982, the classic and flagship of the Seiko Kinetic family. Good stuff. Simon Jones saying, previously owned by Darth Maul. It could be a lot worse, okay? It could be Kylo Ren. All of a sudden, Darth Maul doesn't seem so bad, does he? All right, let's jump to something truly classic and unimpeachably beautiful. A president's watch, speaking of impeachment. How about the Vulcain Cricket 50s President's Watch? And this is an interesting timepiece because you don't see too many Vulcain Crickets. I would say we see about 100 Memovox variants from JLC for every Vulcain Cricket. Stainless steel, powered by their automatic V11 movement. This is a rare example of a fully modern caliber architecture in a contemporary Vulcain. Now you can see that it features an unconventional setting system. If you're used to the Memovox, the crown controls everything, and this pusher is actually a clutch. So you can see the crown pops out when I push the clutch, and now I can set the hand that indicates the time the alarm will trigger. Okay, I'm going to push the crown back in. Now, I'm going to set the time of the watch. It's called a Cricket for a reason. And just like that, you press the pusher and it's done. My point is that some folks have joked that you need a PhD to set this watch. It's not tough at all. Can you drive a standard transmission? Can you set a mechanical watch? You're good to go. This one is resplendent in a rather presidential sunburst brown bronze. Gorgeous watch. This is something that has bipartisan appeal. I think both sides of the aisle can agree this is an all-timer. Tri-Arabics, sunburst dial, all applied indices, and let's do a wrist shot. Absolutely gorgeous. That's a watch that you can wear on any wrist in any occasion. If there's anything this one doesn't do well, 50 meters water resistant, it's not an aquatic watch, but what a gorgeous timepiece. Unimpeachable history here. Bump. Okay, bump. Wrist shot, your wish is granted. Let's jump to something outrageous. Not so outrageous that it looks like it's going to eat my arm, but objectively quite flamboyant. This is a watch that everyone loves. Well, everyone who loves Panerai loves this watch. This is the PAM 507 Bronzo. The first Bronzo, the 382, came out in 2011. They made 1,000 pieces. The combination of a patina-inclined bronze case, submersible 1950 profile with rotating bezel, and a gorgeous olive drab style SLC dial with the double index. This is a watch that evolved the original concept with a power reserve by virtue of the caliber 9002. It's the 9000 3-day automatic with a power reserve on the dial. Absolutely gorgeous, resplendent in bronze. This one has just enough patina to charm, not so much to revolt. A watch that, quite frankly, represents some of the best of the Angelo Bonatti era, and I think when people look back on Angelo's greatest hits, this is going to rank in the top 10. This and the 382. Forget the 671. Blue is a thing of our era. Back in 2011 and 2013, no one was doing a watch like this. The two Bronzos actually started and indisputably launched the bronze watch movement of the modern era. Own the original. This is the 507, evolved to include the power reserve scale. Otherwise, all of the charisma, all of the charm, all of the patina-inclined flash, sheen, and sizzle of the Bronzo. Rose gold hands, too. Okay, I can see we got lots of friends joining us in right now. We have a comment from Hale Bopp regarding the Vulcain President's Watch, saying it has a nice 1960s Timex look to it. I take that as a compliment. And I think we have a question. What is the price for the Vulcain? I want to say we're asking $3,500 for that watch. So Josh T at thewatchbox.com, my buddy Josh Thanos, who hosts the Friday show, he can give you full details. But right now it looks like we're asking just under $3,500 for that one, which is a good deal. Now, moving on, here's a watch from back in the day that wins my heart without contest. A JLC Reverso Duo in the Grand Tie case. This is an excellent use of yellow gold in a modern men's watch. 42 millimeters lug to lug, 26 wide, yellow gold, and perfectly suited to the most traditional golds. A Reverso, especially a Reverso with a Duo double time feature, is the perfect all-arounder if you want a dress watch for the office that can dress down a little bit and work in a casual circumstance, that can fit on a smaller wrist but has plenty of gravitas and presence if you're a larger wristed guy who prefers traditional size, but you don't want to look like you're wearing a quarter on your wrist. This is the way to go. Now you can see this one uses the dimple style adjuster, but it is a post-1995 Reverso Duo with the JLC deployant clasp that launched in the 1990s. This is also a little bit of an upscale model. The yellow gold Reverso Duo for a time was essentially the flagship of the Reverso catalog. Aside from the rose gold complications of the 90s, this was the signature JLC of the, since we're going with a presidential theme tonight, I guess the Clinton era or the Boris Yeltsin era, depending on which country you hail from. Throw it on the wrist. This is how 42 millimeters lug to lug, the Reverso Grand Tie case looks like on a guy's average size wrist. 16 centimeters circumference, perfect look. If you think yellow gold is just a little too flashy, too flamboyant, or too traditional, try it in a Reverso. You won't regret it. Beautiful watch, built to last from a great name. This is a gateway to high horology. That's what this is. This is your first watch above the level of Rolex Breitling Omega. Okay, and I can see we have a little bit of competition in here. Simon Jones saying, Rolex, take that. That is a proper green. The Bronzo, of course. I can see Sebastian Palacio saying that is the Bronzo nice piece. Alexi saying, well, this is Edward responding to Alexi saying, I'm more of a Richard Mille guy than Grunefeld and Grubel. I can't object to each his own. Personally, I'm a Grunefeld guy. One of them's named Tim, and they're nice dudes. I met them at Basel World. Lots of fun. They build beautiful watches. Who else is hand decorating stainless steel bridges these days? Okay, horological brothers aside, let's talk about high horology from Geneva, not from the Netherlands. This watch is about as good as it gets in yellow gold. I showed you the yellow gold JLC. Now look at the top of the tech tree. Perpetual calendar chronograph with hand-engraved melancholy moon. It's the Vacheron Constantin Malte chronograph perpetual calendar, 39 millimeters in yellow gold with Hunter caseback and Vacheron caliber 1141 QP, that's Quantième Perpetual, giant balance, beaten away at 18,000 vibrations per hour, entirely hand-finished with blinding Geneva rhodium-plated brass bridges and plates. This is as good as it gets. Now, the Malte case is strong, as you can see those stepped lugs and fluted bezel, but 39 millimeters, you can also wear this watch on any wrist. And with the Hunter caseback, you're not giving up any gold. You get the massive gold, the value of gold, but you still get the gorgeous caseback viewpoint, so you can see your movement, but you can also cover it up and enjoy the heft of a full gold case and the value of a full gold watch. Big, slow, and charming. Let's watch this classical Lemania-based chronograph caliber in action. Okay, big, steady chug-a-chug, almost like a pocket watch. Turn it over now, and you can see the lateral clutch engaging and disengaging at the center. There, it disengages. You can see it just below my finger. Now the intermediate driving wheel engages with the center wheel, driving the chronograph. You can see just under my finger here the engagement of the horns and levers of the chronograph with the column wheel system. This is why you want a traditional column wheel, lateral clutch, manual wind chronograph. It betrays all of its secrets. And watch now, you're going to see the recentering hammers act on the heart cams at center. Gorgeous stuff, guys. And at 39 millimeters, anyone can wear this watch. I'll do a wrist shot. Incredibly, despite the perpetual calendar, chronograph, and Hunter caseback, the watch is only 13.8 millimeters thick, so traditionally sized, nicely proportioned. This is also a watch that can get away with yellow gold, because you can get away with anything as long as you do it with good manners, and this one has an impeccable pedigree of etiquette. Vacheron, as only VC can do it. This is early 2000s glory from a brand that I know is going to return to favor among collectors. I feel it in my heart. But let's say for a moment that the other high horology house of note, of record, let's just say the leading house in Geneva, appeals to your heart. Well, we've got the alternative from the same time frame as that 47112, and it's the Patek Philippe 5970R. Rose gold, the 5970 with the same Lemania 2310 Bausch. You can see Patek goes about things an entirely different way. The watch is larger at just over 40 millimeters, and Patek installs a tachymeter scale so that you can somewhat overlook the disparity between case size and movement size. Now, you'll also note that Patek style is a little bit more heavily adorned and calibrated. The Vacheron, in my opinion, and let's do side by side, the Vacheron is cleaner. The Vacheron is cleaner, the Patek is sportier. Now, which one do you guys prefer? Tell me in the chat box, and I'm going to read off your answers. Do you go with the stepped lugs and fluted bezel of the Vacheron with the clean, unadorned dress-inspired dial? Or do you go with the more dramatically ornate combination of concave bezel and, as you'll note, almost claw-profiled lugs of the 5970R? You'll also quickly recognize how much more pronounced the Vacheron's crown and shouldered pushers are compared to the more minimalist profile on the edge of the Patek Philippe. Real distinctions here in style, despite the similarity in time frame that the watches were made, the movement, the complication, even the size of the watch. Each one has its own personality. I'm going to come out and say that I'm more of a Vacheron guy than a Patek guy, although both of them are immaculate in their execution. You really can't go wrong here, so it comes down to preference. I will show you, however, since I showed you the caseback of the Vacheron, the caseback of the Patek, and this one deserves the same acknowledgement. Patek's style seems almost a little bit more austere compared to Vacheron. I have to say, seeing the watches side by side and back to back, the Patek proves that sometimes God is in the details. From half a meter away, the Patek almost looks understated, almost reserved in its execution. And you can see, because this watch is larger overall, at over 40 millimeters, that there's a more pronounced disparity between movement size and case size. But make no mistake, throw this one under the 20 power loop and it impresses just as surely as does the Vacheron. Now, Patek Philippe times 2, I'm up for it. How about you? I was at the Grand Exhibition last year in July, New York City. It was at Cipriani, and it was a wonderful, I don't want to say once in a lifetime, but certainly once in a decade experience where Patek brought over a full quarter of the museum and launched a whole line of watches exclusive to the United States market. This is the 5230G New York Skyline Edition. So you can see the guilloche cut at the center of the dial is Lower Manhattan with the World Financial Center, where I used to work in securities law, and the Freedom Tower just behind. You can see the waves of New York Harbor and the sun ray pattern that represents the sky. Beautifully made, incredibly subtle. This isn't a watch that screams USA co-branded edition, if the USA is indeed a brand that can be co-branded. But this is something I believe has international appeal. Rare, gorgeous, and useful. If you want to travel with your Patek Philippe, you could do far worse than the Louis Coutier World Time system. First conceived in the early 1930s and used by Patek and Vacheron out of the gate. Later, Patek and Coutier added the pusher-adjuster system that lets you move all of the reference cities, the 24-hour reference ring, and your local time at center in sync. The watch does the math for you. Beautiful movement. This one actually feels more elaborate than the Patek Philippe CH2770 Perpetual Calendar Chronograph that we just saw. You can see the New York 2017 ghosted onto there and silk screened. I have to say, in person, it's a lot harder to see. What you can see is the immaculate execution of the movement, the perlage of the base plate, the Côte de Genève of the rotor, and the bridges themselves. And if you look at it from this angle, you can see the mirrored anglage glowing at the edge of all the bridges in the balance cock. As good as it gets, gyro max balance, free sprung for stability, micro rotor automatic with a 48-hour power reserve, and although you can't see it, Spiromax silicon amagnetic hairspring. A gorgeous and special piece dedicated to my hometown in white gold. Since we're doing wrist shots tonight, let's just keep rolling with that. This is the wrist shot, 38.5 millimeters. This is the Patek Philippe 5230G New York Skyline Grand Exhibition limited edition of 300 pieces. Like I said, this is one that is totally under the radar if you want it to be. No one's going to notice that dial unless you call out. Everyone else is going to realize it's a gorgeous watch, and the connoisseur will recognize a Patek Philippe World Time. Lovely piece. Matches my shirt, too. Okay. Love the micro rotor. Colin Carpenter, a big fan. I can see Edward Ledden saying the 5970 in yellow gold is the greatest version. That's right. It's a one-year version that came out in 2008 to 2009. Late 2008, early 2009. One-year run. How often is the yellow gold the rarest Patek Philippe complication? In this case, that's the case. All right. I can see Sebastian Palacio saying, too many Grail watches all at once, and Matt Foster, love that World Time. Hale Bob saying, I like the VC of the Patek and the VC, but only by a hair. Matt Foster, Patek Philippe, of the two, he prefers the 5970. Amadigi DeGala saying, Vacheron for me, Bob Rouleau, Vacheron is my choice, less clutter. Simon Jones, of the two, VC for me, just more interesting. Watch Yoda, Vache for me, Andrew ST12 prefers the Patek. Edward Ledden also prefers the Patek. Tom P makes it even. Vacheron versus Patek. We really should have done a this or that poll for these two. I didn't see that coming, guys. I apologize. Now, the Seiko Sportura Kinetic Chronograph. I had a request for a wrist shot. Boom. There it is right there. Ready for Halloween 2018, a couple of months in advance. This is so... I want to say that this is so the watch you need to wear if you're like American Otaku driving your JDM Skyline, not legal import, gray market, to some sort of manga fan fest with like bootleg copies of Full Metal Alchemist that have never been published, and I don't even know, fan fiction that continues the series, like the craziest thing you can imagine that is so Japanese pop-centric. If you're into J-pop, you need to consider this watch. Okay, bump, 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 bump. Paul B. Tim, we need to organize an informal session on how to get YouTube to notify us all when you were live. That's it. We're doing the Twitter thing. My boss can yell at me. I'm doing it. We need to notify everyone who's signed up. We're going to create a Twitter account. We're going to do it tomorrow. You guys can sign up for the Twitter account. Twitter's a hell of a lot more stable than YouTube. When I go live, I'm going to give you a 5-minute notice so that you can go onto our website and force the issue instead of waiting for, and by our website I mean our YouTube channel, instead of waiting for YouTube to give you the notice, because as I've learned, it may never come. It's the Titanic scenario. SOS, help is not on the way. Okay, good stuff. Boom, let's roll with this. I have a watch that all of us love, and by all of us, I mean all of us watch nerds. This is from H. Moser & C. Fume dial, check. Endeavor case, absolutely. Manual wind movement with immaculate German-Swiss finishing traditions? Oh yes, you better believe it. Does it get any better than this? Not really. A giant slow-beating balance, 18,000 vibrations per hour, 3-day power reserve, manual wind. You can see the case itself is almost pornographic. A combination of fluid curves. This is as good as it gets. Tucked lugs, concave bezel, fume dial, leaf hands, onion-style crown, wearable size. Let's throw this one on the wrist, and then we'll do another movement shot real quick. Boom. Absolutely gorgeous. Moser makes beautiful things. I've often said that they're like the Swiss German FP Journe, which is the Swiss-French FP Journe. Moser makes about 1,100 to 1,500 watches a year, small runs, in-house calibers, everything made in-house, including their own 18, well, I think it's actually 14-karat solid gold escapement. So they make their own escapement parts, they make their own overcoil hairsprings, they make their own cases, they make everything, and they do it vertically integrated for a total production run of 1,100 to 1,500 pieces. This is absolutely gorgeous, and I have to say, if you're into independent horology, but you want to watch from a company that's going to be around, Moser is owned by a mid-sized firm called MELB Holdings that has a considerable amount of capital and managerial experience. Since 2012, the watches have all been serviceable, reliable, and the company has been stable financially and managerially. If you've ever thought of taking the plunge with Moser, don't think for too long. This is a company that generally sells out its annual production now. You can see all of the standards are here. You can see jewels set in chaton. You can see a movement immaculately hand decorated. Double-crested Côte de Genève, note that, you never see this. Beautifully executed with an unconventional architecture and a platform escapement that can be picked out in a single piece for quick servicing at the factory. This watch is designed to be beautiful, it's designed to be serviced quickly and efficiently, and it's unavoidably rare. Moser with fume dial, gorgeous stuff. I'm a big fan. I've often said they're the German-Swiss FP Journe, and I'm standing by that. Okay, tonight, vintage. Let's do it. Heuer Skipper. Now, this was the end of the line for the Heuer Skipper line. Early 1980s, caliber 15, micro-rotor automatic based on the old caliber 11, but with a higher beat rate and a somewhat simplified architecture. You can see it features a regatta-style dial for counting down to the matches within a regatta or a sailboat race. Of course, the caliber 15, like the 11 and 12 before it, was a Buren 1280 micro-rotor automatic system combined with the Dupois de Praz 8000 series chronograph module. So a hamburger movement based on a DD module and a Buren micro-rotor automatic. It narrowly, as a family of movements, beat the Zenith El Primero and the Seiko 6139 to market in 1969. Now the watch is 42 millimeters across its case. It's about 48 millimeters lug to lug. A gorgeous survivor. The dial of this one is immaculate. Not just unrefinished, untouched. It even has the original Heuer blazon clasp in wonderfully original condition. It's crisp with a lot of the original satin finish present, and if you look at the tops of the case, you can actually see that the sunburst graining of the original case finish as it emerged from Heuer right before the Heuer Takeover by Le Mania Piaget. Present and correct. This is essentially a survivor watch, a watch that's beautiful, wearable, evocative, and hasn't gone nuts yet on the vintage pricing scale. This is still an accessible timepiece. This is 11063 reference. Let me show you on the wrist. Okay, so what I like about this watch is A, you don't see a whole lot of them. B, it's part of a historically important family, the caliber 11, 12, 15. C, it's a pre-tag Heuer. And D, it's a watch you can still wear for the sake of fun. Adaptable to a broad range of wrists, I would no longer risk the watch at its rated 100 meters. In fact, I wouldn't take this one diving or swimming in any capacity, but this could be your everyday watch around the office, your casual watch, your club watch, your vintage watch that you're not afraid to wear. Wonderfully intact, a time capsule watch rather than a restored watch. A true survivor. This isn't necessarily the watch that's going to make you rich, except in the sense that we have a wealth of emotions, joy foremost among them, when we wear a wonderfully preserved, charming vintage watch, not for the money, but for the character and the soul, which is something that no amount of money can invest in a watch. A gorgeous piece. One of my favorites of the night. Okay, fun stuff on the table. We are working our way through. I'm going to do some Rolex. I'm going to do some Omega. Let's focus on Rolex first. Okay, I don't have an Alpha, so we'll do Rolex and Omega rather than Alpha and Omega. This is the Rockstar. I can't explain why this watch has only gathered momentum since it debuted in 2013. Whether you call it the Dark Knight, the Batman, the Black and Blue, or by its proper name, 116710 BLNR. The combination of the black Cerachrom with the blue simply captured people's imagination. Now, for good measure, it has a corresponding blue GMT hand, but otherwise, this is a standard steel GMT-Master II, which means you're getting a lot of value. A pilot's watch with the Pan Am heritage and the aviation ancestry of the original model from the mid-1950s. Unlike the original GMT-Master, this one features a true dual-time setup, so you can set your local hour separately from the 24-hour. Now, it does have a bidirectional bezel. If you're wondering, if you've only seen dive bezels before, maybe you're a little new to the GMTs, why does it have a bidirectional rotating bezel? Well, with the 24-hour scale and the 24-hour hand, you can use the local airport or port offset of your destination to temporarily find 3 separate time zones using this watch. So a gorgeous and versatile 40mm case. Though it is a pilot's watch, it's a pilot's watch that you can wear in the water in good conscience because it's 100 meters water resistant. And with the arrival of the Super Case in 2005, for the first time we had a trip-lock crown with reinforced seals on a GMT-Master. So this watch is tougher than it has to be for aviation duty. Consider this one ideal for seaplane pilots, or if you're like me, armchair aviators who might get wet. Boom. Lovely watch, but I will say it might not be the most striking Rolex on the table tonight. We have an absolutely insane Rolex Yacht-Master. Yacht-Master 1. This was the last of the 5-digit Yacht-Masters. This watch is roughly 2010 based on the clasp code, scrambled serial number, a combination of blackened indices, white lacquered dial, sensational two-tone in yellow gold with oyster steel 904L. Now, this was the last of the 5-digit Rolex sports watches. Reference 16623. It has hollow center links, so though it does have solid end links, it's got a little bit of the historic Rolex rattle about its bracelet, and it was also the last call for the old stamped oyster clasp. This is old school, but it's not a vintage watch. It's not even an old watch. It's not even a decade old. And though you can't see, there are triangular indices. You can just barely see perhaps at 10 o'clock. Triangular indices on the dial inboard of the blackened indices. The lume is actually printed onto the dial. That's how that watch works. And it's an absolute joy to see in the dark. One of the most distinctive Rolex watches when night falls. Okay, for those of you who are joining late, we end with a big bang. No, not an hublot. I'm talking full-blown fireworks. This is the watch that opened. This is the watch that closes. The 50 Fathoms X Fathoms. 55.5 millimeters, titanium, depth gauge, 2 depth gauges actually, 1 to 15 meters and 1 to 90 meters. Depth gauge memory, helium escape valve, unidirectional rotating sapphire capped bezel with, get this guys, a 5-minute flyback countdown chronograph for your decompression stops. 5-day power reserve, automatic winding, silicone hairspring, completely mechanical depth gauge mechanism, and a strap with 14 separate components. It is a veritable sea monster. Listen to that bezel. It's like Godzilla roaring as he walks out of Tokyo Bay. Check it out on my wrist, 16 centimeters. I finally met my match, the watch that ate me. This thing is a sea monster, a leviathan of the deep. This is the 5018 reference Blancpain X Fathoms from the 50 Fathoms family. Guys, thank you so much. We are out of time. This has been Watches Live 29 on Watchbox Reviews. Subscribe if you haven't already. That Twitter thing's going to happen tomorrow. Thanks to the crew. Thanks to you. Time out, Tim out, and thanks for logging on.